Board of Education regular meeting. Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Here.
Mr. Neal.
Here.
Mr. Oper.
Here.
Mr. Slattery.
Here.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Here, can we all stand for the pledge? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I was thinking that.
Now I'll turn it over to Dr. Ted Caleres for a superintendent report.
Good evening, Mrs. Barcheck, Board of Education. A few updates this evening. Very excited to announce that we'll be returning to our hybrid format again on Monday. So very excited to see students coming to campus. Again, as a reminder, our format is Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, from 8 to 1:15. We'll start dismissing in phases, starting at 1:15, 1:20 in the different buildings. And then Wednesdays will be remote during our hybrid schedule. Outside of any very negative health data, we're going to stay in that hybrid schedule until the end of October, and then we'll reevaluate what November and December look like. But we want to make sure that we have a good, successful start to the rest of September and October. For our families that have chosen remote only, you don't need to do anything. You're going to stay on that. I think we've had a lot of conversations, communications with our building principals, and we've had some of our families, our students, asked to come back that committed earlier on, but also some that didn't commit want to go into remote. So it's been a nice balance, and if you have questions regarding what that looks like, I would encourage parents to call building principals. Just a reminder. I think we need to, this is a partnership. I see this as a partnership. We need to remain vigilant, I think, with masks and some of the health pieces. And, you know, we want students, if they're not feeling well, to stay home. My message would be, don't feel pressured in terms of trying to get your students back to school. Because we have that remote option, if students are sick, they're able to still keep up with their work. So we want to stay open as long as we can. Especially as we enter cold and flu season. And so a lot of those symptoms look similar, and so we want to take precautions as much as we can. Another thing I want to mention, how Department of Health and the governor is now requiring school districts to report any positive COVID cases for students or staff members. And so we will continue to follow Cuyahoga County Board of Health guidance and recommendations in terms of how we contact trace. The requirement is that if we have a positive case, school districts have to notify all families. And we'll do that within reason in terms of we want to make sure the identity and the privacy of the student or staff members is protected. If that positive case impacts a specific classroom or a specific student, parents will hear directly from either our district nurse, Mrs. Manley, or our building principals in terms of the next steps. So everybody's going to be anxious. This is the first time we've been back to school in over 6 months. We're going to take it one day at a time, and we're going to work with our health officials to determine what that looks like if it happens. But we're a COVID-free complex, so we're not going to have any of those issues. So, but we're excited. We're excited to welcome kids and families back on Monday. I would ask parents to be patient in the parking lots in the morning, be patient in the parking lots in the afternoon. What we don't want is a lot of families congregating in our entrances. So we'll have plenty of staff out on these days on next week. Just principals will be communicating with them this week regarding our pickup, drop-off procedures, things like that. So we just ask our families to remain patient. It's gonna take us a couple days to get the groove going, but we'll do our best. But again, be patient. Some good news to share. We were notified that our Universal, our UPK preschool, received the 2020 Partnership Organization Award from the National Network of Partnership Schools. This is our 6th year receiving this award. And this is a designation that preschools receive. So congratulations to Mrs. Seco, Mrs. Jones, Ms. Seaman, Mrs. Hubble, Ms. Patterson, on all their hard work during that. So again, congratulations to our preschool. We received preliminary report card data from the state of Ohio. So if you remember back in the spring, testing and assessments were canceled. We didn't have a lot of data to share. No one did. What I can share is that we had a 4-year graduation rate of 95%, 95.2, and then a 5-year graduation rate of 94.2. So if we would have received a designation, that would have been an A in our graduation rate. Additional data that we received is that our 3rd grade reading guarantee data, all of our 3rd graders passed that guaranteed and moved into the 4th grade. So from what little data we had, it was positive. We're still looking through, we're still waiting for information from the state of Ohio in terms of what testing in the spring is going to look like. We don't know. My guess is we're going to have assessments come this spring, because I think you have lots of different school districts in lots of different places. You have some schools that are 5 days, some are remote, and some are going to be hybrid like us in the middle. So I think it's a little too early to tell. There's some legislation currently in committee down at the State House in terms of what that looks like, but we're going to kind of wait and see on that. Some Cuyahoga County Public Library information I just wanted to share with them. They are a partner with us. They always run a homework center for our students after school. That'll start on the 28th. Emily Bayer will be our homework mentor at the public library, and she'll be running a homework assistance center from 4 to 6:30 Mondays through Thursdays, starting Monday. So I just wanted to share that information. Additionally, got information from Brooklyn Recreation Center, Mr. Abruzzi, and they're going to be starting rec basketball signups for grades 3 through 6. Registration starts October 1st and goes through the end of that month. Okay. Updating the board on our Hurricane Alley project. You'll see this evening in one of the board resolutions, we received 6 bids from companies, 6 bids on time. We did end up receiving 1 bid after the deadline, which we had to not allow. But that project, we have received the bid. I'll be asking the board this evening to accept that bid. I'll be having a pre-construction meeting with Rodwell King from GPD and the contractor, and hopefully within the next couple weeks we will be getting that project underway with anticipated completion by the end of November. So very excited about that. If you are a remote, going back to our remote schedule, so if you're a family that is in remote learning and you are still in need of a lunch, we're still going to offer that for the lunch availability for our families in remote learning. I've asked you to contact Tracy Spees at 216-485-8121. That went out in my communication today to families, but if you're in need of that information of lunches, please contact Tracy. She's the secretary out of Mrs. Neal's office. And lastly, again, very excited to have kids back. I want to compliment our staff, our administration, our faculty, and really our parents and families. I think the remote learning has started as well as can be expected. And I think if we're forced to go into a remote learning situation later in the year, this is going to be one less obstacle we're going to have. I think we've done a nice job with getting a routine, getting a schedule, and I'll be honest with you, our attendance has been great. And so it was very different than what was offered in the spring, and no criticism of the spring because I think all schools were kind of in the same boat, but our kids are following a daily schedule. They're getting up, they're following a first, second, third, fourth period, so on and so forth. Our little ones are doing the same thing. And so from that perspective, I couldn't be happier with everybody. Very proud of the work they've done. And now we'll have a new challenge starting Monday with teaching both our remote students and our in-person students. And I think the staff and faculty and administration and our kids are well equipped to do that. So thank you for my report.
Thank you, Dr. Calares. Now on to Mrs. A for her treasurer's report.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Barcheck. I passed out to everybody, I like to call it a pre-preliminary revenue projection report for the 5-year forecast. I'm working with Forecast 5 to do the forecast. And I wanted to let you guys know that I'm gonna kind of go over the information maybe a little fast tonight, but it's not because it's not important, but I just wanted to give you the information that's out there. There's definitely further analysis that has to be done, but I wanted to let you know that I was working on it and where I was at the moment. So the first page of it is just pretty much an executive summary of the revenue forecasted, and you can see the main takeaway on this page is the first chart, where it has the real estate portion of, it shows all your revenues, but the main part is the real estate portion of it. It's almost about 70% of where we get our revenues. And then after that, you could see how it's public utility and state funding and other sources to follow. The other main takeaway of the first executive summary that I like to call it is you can see the last 2 years, 2024 and 2025. The revenues will take a dip if we do not have the renewal of the levy renewal. Besides that, the other years were looking pretty consistent, and to kind of dig down a little deeper, again, not to go fast with it to take away the importance of it, but just give you a general information of it. On the next page, it goes over the general property tax, which is the big, 60 to almost 70% of the revenues that the school district collects, and that's from the class 1, the residential and agricultural, and the class 2, the business. And the main takeaway of this one is hopefully we're going to be consistent with it, and we might see even a little increase due to the what's it called? I can't say the word, triannual and reappraisals for 2021. So that's a good thing. The other thing I do want to point out that I need further analysis with is for the class 2, the business. This is the Board of Revisions. The district is going through a lot of revisions and tax complaints. So with the exception of the Plain Dealer and Medical Mutual, which is not presented in here, we could be looking at a decrease of almost $800,000 due to those tax complaints, but hopefully Medical Mutual and Plain Dealer will turn that around for us. So definitely further analysis on that. It's too early to say anything, but I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. And everything else on this, and like I said, I could go as much detail as you want, but since it's just the beginning, I just kind of wanted to show you where the revenue sources are, that we're looking at a little increase due to the reappraisal and the triannual update. And we're looking good for the next few years until we hit 2024 and 2025, but that's when our renewal comes off.
Will the finance committee be looking at this first?
So
We did this morning.
Oh, did you? Okay. All right.
yes, we looked at it this morning. I just kind of wanted to give you a little update where we're at. The forecast is due at the end of November. So on the October 28th meeting, the 28th meeting, I was planning on having the presentation for you for the 5-year forecast. You guys will have a couple weeks to look it over, ask questions, whatever you need, and then by November 17th, I was hoping to get that board approved so I could send it for the deadline.
I may want to set a meeting up with you
Sure,
one-on-one.
definitely.
You and Ann. All right. Go over it.
Definitely, and that's all that I have.
Yeah. That's a change from previous years, by the way. We always had to submit the budget by October 31st, so they gave us an extension.
Everybody, not just Brooklyn, but yes.
Yeah, they give everybody, yeah.
Okay. COVID extension?
Thank you, Mrs. A. I'm gonna go off the computer because the agenda has been updated since they were printed.
Yes.
So I'm gonna go off the computer. We're going on now to approval of minutes. Resolve that the minutes of the September 15, 2020 Board of Education regular meeting be adopted, and all action taken by the Board of Education at said meeting is hereby reaffirmed and approved. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes. Result of the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the attached agreement with PSI Affiliates, Inc. A copy of the agreement is on file in the Treasurer's office. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
This is an agreement with our non-public St. Thomas More. This is no impact on our general fund. This comes out of non-public title money.
Okay.
Yeah.
A quick question for you so that the public understands. Why are we involved with?
A great question, because St. Thomas More is a private parochial school within the boundaries of Brooklyn city limits, so we're required by law to divvy up part of our title funding, Title II funding. Part of that federal money that we receive automatically diverts to St. Thomas More. If we had 2 or 3 schools within our boundaries, it would be the same. That some of that money would go to all of those schools, but it's based on a formula and yeah. So, but that's why we do that.
So it could change from year to year, how much?
It can absolutely change from year to year depending on the data that's uploaded to the state on free reduced numbers and lots of other things.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you so much for explaining that. Thank you. Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby authorizes GPD Group to accept Bayman Enterprises, Inc. bid on behalf of the district for the redevelopment of a practice field located northwest of Brooklyn Stadium, 4500 Hurricane Alley, Brooklyn, Ohio, 44144, per the attachment on file in the treasurer's office. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second? Questions, comments?
What was the final bid on this one?
The final bid on this
Because I
one-
went to open
Yes,
this.
Mr. Neal, the final bid was $60,500 for the base bid, and then the alternate bid item was
20,000?
$20,000, correct.
Any other questions? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
No.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes. Pursuant to RC 3313.48 and applicable laws, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves and enters into a memorandum of understanding with the Brooklyn Education Association for the additional of 2 supplemental positions listed below effective July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2023 collective bargaining agreement. Grade 7 Power of the Pen Coach, .0218. Grade 8 Power of the Pen Coach, .0218. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have questions, comments?
So this item here, so when we were looking, actually, Mr. Fisher actually noticed this, when we were looking, this supplemental was approved back in August. And so when we were looking to figure out the cost to pay it, it was not located in the collective bargaining agreement. Doing a little bit more investigation, this was approved back in 2016. These are the same rates that were approved in 2016, the .0218, and so we wanted to make it official because if we got because if an auditor came and said, let me see this information based on why we're paying, we wouldn't have had documentation based on the new collective bargaining agreement to pay it. So it's really just an addition, making sure it's officially noted in the collective bargaining agreement, so if Mrs. A has any issues with, doesn't have issues with auditors. So it's just solidifying that these are current positions that we've had for the last 4 or 5 years, and we want to memorialize it with this, just so there's no confusion going forward.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education approves the following overnight field trips for the 2020-2021 school year. 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C., May 19th through the 21st, 2021. Band, New York City, May 12th through the 15th, 2021. And the Europe trip, April 2nd through the 13th, 2021. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
I know on the board members' paper copies it says China. We thank you, Mrs. Barcheck, for catching that. We correct that in the board docs agenda. This is just getting the dates solidified. I'll be honest with you, it's one of those things where we're going to have to analyze whether or not we can send kids. I know that included in our board update, there's cancellation policies and insurance and those types of things. So this is just literally getting it on the books so we can move forward. I would say to the board, we'll make the decision on these trips based on health and safety of students and just kind of go from there. I know originally the New York City trip was scheduled for this December. Obviously, we're not going to go this December. hopefully it gets a little bit better from a safety and health standpoint in May that we can send the kids. So literally just getting on the book so that we can move forward with this.
So are the 8th and 9th graders going to Washington DC at the same time?
That's a great question, Mr. Barczyk, and I don't know the answer. I think they are, but I will follow up with Mr. Hare because I thought that was the original plan to have, because our 8th graders from last year, this year's 9th graders missed the trip. We want those kids to have the same experience. So I'm almost positive both groups are going together, but I'll include that in my update on Friday and let you know.
And by voting on this is no way of the board guaranteeing of these trips. And I want to make that very clear.
Like I was saying, we are literally just saying that
Saying.
we're approving the trip, and the going on the trip is strictly a safety and health
Yes.
consideration.
I just want to make that
And
clear.
right now, I think I'll be like, for example, the Europe trip. I don't we don't even know if our kids are going to be able to get into Europe because so like I said, we're just officially approving it, and we'll go from there.
Yes, so the board is not assuming any of that,
Correct.
responsibility.
I
Okay.
have a question.
Yeah.
How is, especially for like the trip in April, it's, I mean, I know it's just calendar days, just to
Correct.
kind of book a block, but it's 11 days. How is the staff chosen to man that?
Mrs. Hokel deals with the staffing with Mr. Hare. That's as far as I know, Mr. Slattery. I know there are current staff members that go to that. Correct.
Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes. Resolved, the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the second reading and adoption of the following board policies as noted. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second? Questions, comments? Anyone? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the following persons for the 2020-2021 supplemental teaching assignment with the provision that such individuals comply with all rules and regulations and State Department of Education regulations pertinent to proper certification and fulfills the requirements of the job description attached to their supplemental contracts. Entry-level teacher mentor Chris Rogers, entry-level teacher mentor Brittany Hubble, resident educator facilitator year 3 Sue Grodick, resident educator colleague year 4 Jane Kiss, and Power the Pen 8th grade Jacinta Bader. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
Yep. Are these new? Are they?
They're not. No, they're not new, Mr. Neal. The
We
first
missed them. Previous?
No. Well, we didn't have the mentors set yet because that depends on. So, for example, a brand new teacher is required to have a resident educator mentor.
Okay.
We got our new teachers in that that's when we found them. So that's why it's coming on so late. Power of the Pen is 8th grade. That is new because of everything that happened in terms of finding out about the supplemental. Yeah.
Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes. Result of the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves salary schedule placement for the 2020-2021 school year as follows. Annie Burr, Class 5, Step 18. Jeff Lavender, Class 4, Step 21. Jacqueline Ralph, Class 5, Step 14. George Temis, Class 5, Step 21. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments?
This is just the annual, as teachers, as faculty, get graduate credit and move up. This is their submission to move them up in the salary schedule.
Okay.
So,
Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer,
Yes.
Mr. Neal,
Yes.
Mr. Oper,
Yes.
Mr. Slattery,
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes. Result is the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves two hours of training transition time on September 23rd, 2020 for the start of the 2020-21 school year for the following playground monitors as noted. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Questions, comments?
as our monitors are starting officially on Monday, Mrs. Seco and Ms. Smith wanted to get them in for training prior to. So these are our playground monitors that came in today for the 2-hour training, and we wanted to make sure that they were compensated for that.
Anyone else?
I'm sorry, I missed the second.
I think it was Rick and I.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the following CATS employees for the 2020-21 school year as noted. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Have questions, comments? Sorry, second.
I'll second
Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
that. Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
I will abstain as I know one of the candidates.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the following CATS resignation. Debbie Colai, effective September 30th, 2020, and Jessica Pogue, effective immediately. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second? Questions, comments? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes. The Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby commends Debbie Colai for her years of service to the students of Brooklyn. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second? Questions, comments?
Thank you.
Thank you for your
you.
time. Thank you.
How long?
That I do not know.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Yes, I can. Do we?
Oh, motion, motion?
Oh, you did. I just didn't know we needed to, we could call a roll. Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Sure.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes. We usually do approve those, but I don't know if we do need to or not. but
Sorry.
yeah, we usually do. Okay, resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby amends Resolution 20-08-304 to reflect the increase of hours per day with additional transition time for the following CATS employees, as noted. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Question, comments?
This is Barcheck, this was just her original hours approved were 5, we were bumping that up to 6. So
Okay.
that's the amendment on the resolution.
Transition time.
Yeah, so we had originally agreed to, but, so while we were in remote learning, given Savannah and Debbie transition time to learn the position, even though we didn't have it, we didn't have kids in the building. I thought we had put this resolution on earlier, it slipped through the cracks, so again, we wanna make sure that we're covered in terms of auditing, that we've approved, you have approved, the Board of Education has approved somebody to be paid for those hours. So that's just kinda covering the work they did before.
Okay. Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes. Resolved that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby amends Resolution 20-07-264 to reflect the hours per day for the following CATS preschool employees as noted. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments?
The amendment in the resolution is in the first agenda, we approved them for 7.25 hours per day. We wanted to clarify that to make sure, and this isn't changed, this is their regular schedule, but we just wanted to clarify that they'll also be getting paid on, and working those hours on Wednesdays when preschool students aren't here. And if, normal year it would have been on Fridays, but that's the time that they go to meetings and with parents and things like that. So it's not really a change in their schedule. We just wanted to clarify that they're gonna get paid on Wednesdays when kids were not here.
Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes. Result of the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the employment of the following substitute personnel for the 2020-21 school year as noted. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Second, questions, comments?
Is
Mrs. A?
this in seniority list?
No,
Is that
sir.
what I'm reading?
It's not a seniority list, it's just,
Well, I mean, in this sheet. Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so how would we, is that how it's done by seniority? Like,
how
since I
they
noticed
call,
that there's a lot of
how do they call, I'm gonna be honest with you, that would be a question I have for Mrs. Neal in terms of how they rotate the cleaning or rotate the substitute. I believe it goes in some type of rotation. I don't know if it's by seniority. I could clarify with Mrs. Neal, but I'm not sure how she fills those sub positions.
Okay. Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Oper.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes. Result that the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education hereby approves the employment of Barbara Flanagan as a temporary sub-cleaner, Appendix B, Step 7, for 2.45 hours per day, effective September 24th, 2020 through October 30th, 2020. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Questions, comments?
We have a staff member on leave right now, so these hours here are filling part of that schedule, because we have the need. I would anticipate an additional approval in the October, just because we anticipate the staff member continuing to be on leave.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Ober.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.
Yes. Any other business? Anyone? Other business?
Well, you know, I do have something, a question I had for Dr. Ted. Do we have an interim plan to notify the city and the crossing guards for when our kids do go back
Yeah.
physically?
Officer Meadows has already done that.
Oh, has he?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, he's already done that.
Because my concern is, you know, we've been off school for so long.
Yes.
I see traffic coming out today. They're not minding the,
Yeah, and I should have mentioned too, so I talked to Officer Meadows, he's notified our the crossing guards of our time of dismissal. We talked a little bit about the mileage in front of the school, and I think we're just gonna keep it at the 20 from 1 to 4. We're not gonna change it depending on, hybrid. I think that'll get too complicated. We're also gonna have additional officers here in the morning and the afternoon next week to help with the traffic flow and just until parents get back into that groove. So yeah, very great question.
are we gonna retain the crossing guards that we had last year?
I cannot speak to who we had last year and who they are this year. I can find out that information for
Because
sure.
I know some districts are having issues with keeping.
I
school
know
guards for their
we
part-time.
have the positions filled. I have not heard from him that we do not have the positions filled. I know we have the positions filled.
They're
But I'll
only-
find out for sure.
But they're only gonna be working the days that we were. in
That is
charge.
correct. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and if for some reason we're fortunate enough to go back to a regular schedule, we'd adjust it then also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you'd be so kind just to check.
I will
double check
absolutely.
that, make sure we have coverage.
I know the city does the hiring, correct? Because we don't, the city doesn't.
Yeah,
hire
the
for
city
them.
does, but I mean, we want our kids.
Yeah,
we
I
want
know.
crossing
Dan
guards.
has not indicated that we had a hole in that position, but I'll double check with him tomorrow. I'll include it in my Friday report.
Anyone else? Okay. Announcement of the next regular meeting of the Brooklyn Board of Education is Tuesday, October 20th, 2020, in the Media Center located at Brooklyn Intermediate Elementary School, 9200 Bidoff Road, Brooklyn, Ohio, 6 p.m. Can I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second. Mrs. A, can you call the roll?
Mr. Singer.
Yes.
Mr. Neal.
Yes.
Mr. Ober.
Yes.
Mr. Slattery.
Yes.
Mrs. Barcheck.